So I've been looking for a project truck and I got a 07 F150 FX4. I mean, finding something with no rust, I mean, that alone is pretty tough around here. So I've got the right platform to work off of. Now it does have that 3-valve 5.4 in it. I've never been inside of a 3-valve 5.4 at all. The local machine shops here don't really want to talk about them. They don't really want them in their shop. And I can understand why. I can, they, from the research I've been doing on them, they can be quite finicky. The top end will have oiling issues when things wear out. One thing that's for sure is that number 3 cylinder and number 8 cylinder are both down. It is possible that there's a broken valve spring. If this thing were to get a diesel, we'd be looking at something like a Mercedes OM 606. Or we'd be looking at maybe a 4BT. I'm just going to start off by looking at what we got and, pulling this thing out, pulling heads off, seeing where we're at, and then we'll make some educated decisions from there. All right, so we're just getting started here, pulling the intake components off. I go to take off our vacuum line, and I find that this thing is it's not even close to being tight. This thing has been sucking dirty air for who knows how long. I don't know what their plan or thought was here, but I don't know, we'll give Air Raid the benefit of the doubt that maybe the person who put this on just had the parts and didn't use them. Sheesh. I see there's also some sort of aftermarket spacer down here under the throttle body. Alright, we got the power aid out. Now, this thing's got a screw collar in here. I bet you anything they're advertising this as some sort of special tornadic action. And it'll give you 25 horsepower and 5 miles per gallon easy. So this little gem, it'll go up on eBay if anybody's looking for it. No. All right, well, we're just plugging away here, or I should say unplugging away. We're just got our intake stuff off and just sort of working our way down. I'm taking my time and just labeling what some of the various plugs are for the sensors. I'm not sure exactly what kind of motor is going to go back in here. It might be a 5.4 block with some modifications. It might be a 4.6, or it might be something entirely different. So just having everything labeled now is much easier than trying to figure out where it all went later when you don't have a motor that's all put together to sort of match the harness up onto. So that'll make life a little bit easier. I still got the hood on right now, just for no other reason other than to hold my light up. So I'll leave that on as long as I can, but I will have to pull the hood before I can actually pull the engine. Yeah, so next we're going to pull our hoses, pull our fan shroud. We'll also start draining the oil. We'll let that get going here while we're working on other stuff on the top. What I've done with these scrivets in the past is I have just broken them off and then just replaced them with a standard push rivet. And instead of having this screw insert, it's just got a pin that pushes in to sort of a rivet insert, and that spreads it apart. Looking at the clearance we don't have here, it's going to be just a situation of just pulling the fan and the shroud off at the same time. Usually these cowlings nowadays, they seem to be making the cowlings so deep that you can't just slip them off by themselves. I could be wrong. Someone out there could prove me wrong. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's probably how it's going to go. I'm going to be interested to see if these cats survived having an engine go down like this. I believe this engine management system is supposed to have a defuel built into it, so that if certain cylinders are not firing, it'll defuel them. Whether or not that actually works well enough to save the cats, I don't know. Let's see if it's a 15 or 5/8. No bueno to the 15. Ah, bueno to the 5/8. Let's see what comes out. Please no pieces. Okay, well that's actually a very clean fluid. So, doesn't smell too laden with fuel. Yeah, I mean you can smell there is some in there, but it's not like completely rank with fuel. Okay, I can feel it. Wow. Trans cooler lines in here. All kinds of stuff in here. Ford techs, I pity you. Man, something as basic as a coolant drain should not require this much monkey wrenching. And that's the thing I've found with Fords. You know, I've had some Ford cars, and I've had a 02 F150 before this. And, you know, you'll see some things and you're just like, what were you thinking? And then you see other areas and you think, that's absolutely brilliant. It's like half the design team are Harvard grads and the other half are just sort of, well, yeah. There we go. Pocket cap. There. And what this tells me is that we are getting some oil in the coolant somewhere. My first culprit would be head gasket, but I also wouldn't rule out a cracked head or cracked block. There we go. Now that fan can come off. Cool a bit. This weld integrity is actually really quite important, so we're not going to quench it down. Alright, tires are fastened. Look at that, we got a little more room to work now. All of a sudden it's like being in the 80s again. If I end up putting another 5.4 in, there's a pretty good chance I'll be getting the wiring harness with it. And I might just save this one on the bench for later, for when I want to try to do a diesel conversion or something like that. So it's something I can pull apart, mess with, and sort of spend all the hours on the bench instead of under the hood. Just had to file this thing right down. They use such a thin wall of a disconnect on these, but oh, it's just there we go. I wasn't too sure whether or not we would be able to slip this out. I think we could sneak it out with the radiator in here, but man, it would be tight. And that's such a thin radiator. You know, normally I'd put some cardboard in front of a rad and help protect it, but that's such a thin rad that one little slip while pulling the engine and it would crack it, and you know, then it would be out of rad. So it only takes a few minutes to pull the rad once you've spent half an hour modifying a tool, and I think it's worth it. Alright, now to get this last bracket off, we've got a little attachment here for the harness. Yep. There we go. Man, they sure tucked that damn thing way the hell up in there. This is about the point in time where you start hating Ford. Nope. Right, that's the bolt right there that we're trying to get at. Should be able to unclip our transcooler lines. There we go. Just clip that back on. We have our main battery harness. Alright, we're just going to pull our PCV line off. Next, going to pull off these couple of heater core hoses. Okay, so here's our two clips. What normally you do, you just push in, squeeze, and you pull out. And now that I've broken them free once, they work a lot better. What I had to do with these is I had to do one side, get it free, turn the hose, and then wiggle and get the other side free, just to get them to break that first time. Okay, now we got the coolant stuff out of here. It's starting to actually look like it's opening up a bit. I initially wasn't thinking I was going to pull the wiring harness off of this, but now I've decided I am going to. Number one, I really want to be able to inspect it, just in case there is something going on back there that could be affecting also how this thing's running. And the second thing is, I'm really not sure about some of the extra connections and stuff like that, and if I just get this harness out of here completely, then I know I'm not going to miss anything. So that will be one of our VCT solenoids, radio interference capacitor, right here. Okay, we just about got our left-hand side harness out, but we got a couple more. This one's on the power steering line. I'm going to assume it's a pressure. Alright, well, on the left side of the harness here, got this out now. Pressure switch on the power steering system. And then this little takeoff here actually goes back around to the oil filter housing, and that's probably going to be our oil pressure switch. And I found I could not get this out from the front, but getting it from underneath is quite possible. There's just a part of an engine loom by the oil pan. Unclip that, move it out of the way, and then I was able to get this off. Alright, over on the right hand side, wiring harness here, and I just wanted to show this detail, this routing in here, because it looks like this is a real tight spot. You can see there's a pinch in here. There's a little anchor right here that tucks in down around the AC canister right there. I'm not sure where it goes from there, but that's the routing, at least through there. Alright, so now on the right hand side of the wiring harness, farthest one here is down the crank sensor. That's not too hard to get at. You get it from the top, couldn't get it from the bottom. And then there is this, then there's the AC clutch input, and that was a real pain. I couldn't get it from the bottom either. Going in from the top, I found I could only get a finger just on the tab. I couldn't actually get another thumb or anything else in there. So just using your clip puller, just press up against the edge and use it to push, kind of snaking it in right below the idler and the AC compressor. So yeah, a little bit of a pain. And then there is this stud clip right here, and that makes it a little tough to work with just because it is holding everything all together. Okay, just want to take a second here and just show the routing of our wiring harness in here. This is of course our right hand side harness here, and we have this part here that goes to our ECU. Then we have this part which is spliced in or connected to our right hand engine harness, and we can see here it goes behind this AC line with the jog in it. It has this other plug connected to it. That plug plugs onto there. This goes like this, and then up between the AC line and the trans dipstick line, like that. And that'll let us take this out. There looks like there's some connections and whatnot in the back of the intake. I haven't taken the coils out yet. I don't know, they can probably stay in. The fuel rail's probably gonna have to come off. I'm not sure, we'll see. Maybe that might be able to stay on too. But I got a water cross over here. I gotta get that off so that I can get at some of the, so I can get the intake off. And hopefully then I can get the intake loosened up, move it enough that I can see what we have for connections in the back there. Alright, so we had a longer 8mm coming out of here, I guess. A couple shorter 8mm. We got a 10 here, a 10 there. We got an 8 right here. Okay. Did we miss one? Oh, yeah. Jeez, we got an 8 tucked way back in there. Thanks, Ford, for putting this one in here. The cooling system engineer never talked to the intake guy. Alright, and they give you a long one in there too, of course. This crossover goes underneath the intake here. Okay, well, I guess we need to break the intake loose first then. Yep, there we go. There we go. There we go. We got our ground strap in the way. Let's pull that. Okay, we have you have to get this plug, which might be a block temp sensor, I'm not sure. Looks like we may have 2 knock sensors down here. Another plug here, another plug here. One of these goes to the IMRC system. Okay, we got a cylinder head temp sender here, which is probably a blind hole. If they're smart, it's a blind hole so that you can keep an eye on the cylinder head temps even if you are low on coolant. So knock 2 is on the left hand side, knock 1 is on the right. So that'll be up there, knock 1. Okay, this is now a great time to be able to get at the coils. We're just gonna number them. Okay, and why are we numbering? Well, because we have an undiagnosed problem, and we quite possibly have more than one problem going on here. So later when we're trying to figure this out, we can check our coils if need be. I'm also going to pull off the tensioner down here. That'll probably give me some better access to air conditioning compressor, and if possible I'll just unbolt it and leave it there for now, even though I am probably going to do a drain and refill on the fluid after. But if I can just leave that alone for now, that'd be great. That'd be one less thing to worry about. Okay, just a quick note here for next time. I see that once the idler's off here, I have really easy access to this plug for the AC clutch. So that is how I would go after it next time. Now we're going to climb under, get some bolts that are under there, and carry on. Let's get at her. Just pulling the AC compressor right now. Got these 2 bolts out of the bottom. And that's a nasty job if you don't have a hoist. It's just a really hard angle to get in there. With a hoist, it'd only take a couple minutes. Without, well, you'll have fun. I ended up using 2 long extensions with a wobble on the end with that 10 mil. And I was able to just snake up in there on each side of the steering rack. I should have 1 or 2 more up on the top side here for the compressor, and then we should be good to pull that. Okay, well, I found the top one. Looks like it's just one top one and maybe a stud or something in the back. But I had to break it loose with a box end, and then ratchet wrench is your friend. I gotta say, this guy was so tight, I was having a hard time not pulling myself right in the engine compartment, which is ridiculous for a 10 mil bolt. Hopefully you can see where my hand is. It's up in there. If I had a hoist, I would raise this up probably to about the 4-foot level. and access it from there. There we go, this is good. We have our accumulator back there. You can see this line here going into the accumulator is pretty close to the head. I think we'll be okay, but we'll see. That might be an issue. All right, well, here you can see. I can't see. Probably an O2 sensor. Should be another one here. If that's the case, don't see it. So maybe the harness splits, I'm not sure, but let's pull that first. Okay, so I was correct. There are the O2 sensors plugging into this, of course. So I found those O2 sensors. One's back there. Piece of cake to get at, no deal, no big deal. The one back here, on the other hand, is a real pain in the butt. This is the connector that you're looking for down there. I had to go down from underneath, unconnect it. That's not a big deal. But the problem I ran into is this little wire loom connector. It's plugged into the side of the transmission control. And then both of those are halfway up the firewall, in between the block and the firewall. And there is just no way you're going to get in there with typical cat's paw. So I used an 18-inch long flat blade screwdriver. Took about 5 minutes of dicking around, but finally got it to come apart. I just could not get at it any other way, and I don't know. Be interested to hear from others who do these things all the time, whether or not there's an easier way, but I could not find one. So then this left-hand side oxygen sensor is routed down through here, and in order to get this out, I just got it stuck again. But I had to undo this vacuum line here. Taking this out then allows clearance to get this plug out. I could not get it out without pulling that vacuum line either. And then of course this is a little vacuum connector. This goes in the back of the manifold, and I didn't have any problems getting it off. It's already kind of swollen, so it just popped off easy. We'll see, I'll test it, see, might have to replace that line, but yeah, no big deal there. Anyways, there's our harness. I'm gonna go through here, just look for any wear, rub spots. I can see we got one going on right here, and just overall just check it, make sure there hasn't been any mice or rats or squirrels chewing on it. And but the best part about pulling it is that I don't have to worry about wrecking it now by accidentally pinching it while pulling the motor. Alright, well, our top end here is pretty well apart. It does feel like there's a bolt on the trans stick, which there usually is, so I got to find that still. But most things here are apart. Still got to pull the hood, but it's a great light holder, so that'll be one of the last things to go. And this is about the point where it feels like you're just about ready to pull the engine, but there's still a bunch of work down below. So that's what I'm going to get to next. And got to pull front drive shaft, rear drive shaft. We got to get the exhaust unbolted, got to pull the starter, got to get the Bellhousing bolts undone, slide our trans back. Yeah, so still lots to do, but yeah, it's all good work, right? So anyways, let's get at her. Okay, I found that trans dipstick mount, that big bolt on the bottom there. I'm hoping I can just sneak up through here. I can't imagine that they'd actually want us to pull an exhaust manifold for that. Oh yeah, there we go. That's a hell of a long bolt. Jeez. Ford, I'm not saying that that's overkill, but really? It's twice the size of Bellhousing bolts. And all it's doing is holding the transmission dipstick tube. Why does the bottom of this truck smell like cumin? I don't like cumin. Is a 15 mil, which is great. Means I'm still the master of socket sizes. There are some things you can cheap out on. It doesn't really matter. But 1/2-inch drive impacts are not one of them. And neither is 1/2-inch drive sockets. I've never broken a good deep socket on an impact. And people say all the time you can't do it. I do it all the time. There we go. Alright, that's great. Didn't have to bring out a gas wrench. Our exhaust is loose. Super. If you live up in Kandahar like we do, don't forget about your block heater plug. I'm not sure where it goes from here, but hopefully it should just lie on the chassis like that and be okay. I'm gonna unclip our trans control line up here. This is what connects your shifter up in the cab. I'm hoping I can just leave the shift mechanism in place. We'll see. There's probably a 50-50 shot as to whether or not I can pull it or if I can leave it in place. But I am going to have to pull this bracket that's right here that holds the shift linkage just to make it a lot easier. I think just get it. There's one bolt that's right in here. You know, it'd be interesting to talk to someone who's done a cab off on one of these trucks, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't actually be faster to pull the cab and then work on everything that's left. There's got to be a better way in here than this, but I don't know what it is. I can't get a flex head ratchet in there. That was my first thought. Or third thought. You know, pretty well just need a stubby flex head ratchet. Probably Ford special tool number 4001. It probably would have also helped the situation if Ford used a longer bolt up here. Only having a 3-inch Bellhousing bolt is just... oh, it's so substandard. That's so 2019. I could have put a 4 or 5-inch long one in here. Yeah. Thanks, Ford. I'm gonna hate life a little bit putting that together, I can just tell. Alright, we got another moment here brought to you by good old Ford. We got a 24-inch clear opening now with the rad out. Only problem is our long block is 25 inches. Might be able to angle that out, but it's just got a plastic cowling up there, and that shouldn't be too hard to pop off. I used 7mm bolts, so whatever, it's fine. But then they got a bolt hidden right in the back there, or right behind the PCM. That's fine, we'll pull the PCM. But why? Why did they have to clearance it like that? They could have raised that one bolt up 1/2 inch. No problem getting the cowling off then. Could have dropped the PCM 1/2 inch. No problem getting the cowling off. Yay! Alright, we got our wheels blocked, and now we're just going to drop our drive shaft. God. Kind of looks like these are oval locks I'll probably check and see. Usually I can reuse overlocks okay, but if yours come off easy, you might want to replace them. Alright, now that trans is unbolted, gotta do the front drive shaft. I'm a big fan of Markall name brand paint pens. I find that they really hold up well, and they don't, the tips don't die if you are putting them on some oily or kind of crappy stuff. You know, they sure the tips will wear, but you know, some paint pens, if you touch oil with the end, that's it, the thing's done, it's not going to write anymore. Okay, now this can just rest here, that's not going to be in anybody's way. Got some big motor mounts to do. Maybe I'll get those off first. Aha! Once again, the master of socket sizes. Okay. 24 mil, incidentally. Okay, not gonna happen. Okay, so I got bigger breaker bars, but I don't think I'm going to get in here with them. Alrighty, we got a 3/4 inch breaker on here now. I do not know if we can even get in here with it. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, this time with a snipe. Oh. Holy crap. Hey Ford, why? Why? What are you thinking? Okay. I got a really good quality. It's been around the block, that's for sure, but it's primo quality 3/4 ton chain come along here. On a bar that's 1.5 feet long, we should have no problems putting at least 1,000 foot-pounds of torque on that motor mount. Got an axle strap around the entire frame rail there. We're going to keep a hand up on that. Hopefully that we can hold this bar from slipping off. Okay, I actually got a lot of tension on this. I am going to get my hand out of there and use it to cover my face just in case. Because I can see our bar is flexing pretty good. Ah. Okay. Well, that could have gone a lot worse than it did. If only I could get to the nut end. If I could get to the nut end, we could do something about it. I could cold shock it or torch it or something. Well, back to the drawing board. Alright, our local Amazon guy just brought this in. Hopefully this will be the solution to those motor mount bolts. Your hand. Your hand must mean it's durable. I love the fact that it says it's fragile. I don't know if I should be worried or just encouraged by their overcautious packaging. Oh good, made in China. I was hoping this was going to be good quality. Things you just don't hear around the shop very often. But all it's got to do is one very specific job, and that is to apply a buttload of torque to a motor mount bolt. Okay, so I know this is not very good quality, but we'll see if it works. This is a torque multiplier. It is a style that I've not seen or used before, but it's supposed to be a 64-to-1 reduction. Now, unfortunately, their single-page, double-side instructions doesn't say much about anything other than, well, it's got a couple pretty pictures. You see, you turn it to loosen to take things off, and you turn it to tighten to put things back on. So, okay, that's really, actually, that's good to know. That's pretty important. I mean, if you don't get that figured out, I guess you got big problems. Okay, this is a touch precarious in here. My goal of the moment is just to not drop this thing on my head. But I managed to get that foot there resting up against the block. And I think we're just going to miss the dipstick tube, but if we have to kill one of those, that's fine, collateral damage. I'm concerned that I don't have very much throw here, and this thing will build up rotational torque like a rubber band, which is less than cool. I'm also trying to keep most of my head behind the frame rail, just in case this special piece of precision equipment here flies apart. Starting to definitely build some torque now. Probably got 30 to 40 foot-pounds right now on it. Let's think about this. 30 foot-pounds at a 1 to 64 ratio. Well, let's make our math easy. Let's call it a 1 to 60. That's going to be 1,800. So we are conceivably placing around 1,800 foot-pounds of torque on this. And it's starting to really get quite firm now. I was going to stick my 3/4 inch ratchet on here. I decided not to. My problem, or my concern, is that if this does not break loose, I need to be able to slowly feed this thing backwards to take the pressure off. And there's no way to do that with a ratchet. I would torch this bolt off in a heartbeat if I could remove it, but it's not going to help anything because from what I can see, it's blind on the backside. Okay, that worked.